Have you ever heard Data define friendship?
No.
How did he put it? As I experience certain sensory input patterns, my mental pathways become accustomed to them. The inputs eventually are anticipated and even missed when absent.
So what's the point?
He's used to us, and we're used to him.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Fully Functional, Team G Podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are veteran Trekkies, and Dory is a rookie Trekkie, and we are taking her on her first journey through Star Trek: The Next Generation. Today we're discussing the season finale of Season 5, called Time's Arrow, Part 1. Original air date June 13th, 1992. And as always, we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Okay.
Yeah.
This episode's a lot.
This episode's a real doozy, ain't it?
Oh, boy. And I hate to admit it, this was probably, like, watching this episode is probably, like, the quickest I've watched an episode in a long
there
time.
really isn't, there's a lot of interesting scenes in it, but, like, what really happens? There isn't...
Yeah, this episode is purely set up.
Yeah, there really isn't much in terms of, like, plot.
Yeah.
So let's get into that nothing with this recap. Okay, so the Enterprise is being called back to Earth, and they're like, top secret, come here, come back. There's evidence that has been discovered indicating the presence of extraterrestrials on Earth in the 19th century.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, there's like in this cavern, work crews, whatever work crews are doing, were down there installing. Oh, right. We know why they were there.
Yeah.
What were they doing? Who
in
knows?
my own notes. I haven't. They were installing seismic regulators when they found remarkable artifacts. Remarkable is a very generous.
What are you talking about? They found
term.
amazing things,
Yeah.
like a watch and...
They found a pocket watch, old-timey glasses, and a pistol, and something that will haunt me now.
Yeah.
a very badly
like,
molded...
okay.
Continue.
Okay, wait. Hold on, wait. Before what it is. So they were like, okay, because this needs some leading up to. So hold on. They're like, okay. So like, why would you think this? Why would you say none of this is weird or alien-like? Like, well, there's this triolic waves in the cave that are like not found on Earth, like at like then or now.
There's
and
some
so,
technobabble in the
no
cave.
one has also been there. Yeah, it's like blah blah blah. Rocks in the cave have like been exposed to these
Magic
specific
particles.
waves, and Picard, yeah, and then Picard asks the key question, is like, why us?
Yeah.
Which is what I was also
I would like to
asking.
add to that question, why did you ask us to come here without telling us why you actually want us to come here?
Yeah.
for
pretty
dramatic
much, yeah.
effect. So, I wrote in my notes, well, fuck me. So what we see is an absolutely terrifying, like, Data head, but, like,
Yeah, it's-
terrifying.
Yeah.
I thought it was Lore's head. My first thought was Lore, but then we learned it's not
The
Lore's head.
main problem, I think, with it is that the way that they chose to do the molding
Everything.
is mostly fine, but the paint job on it is like, yeah, it's way too
terrible.
reflective.
Yeah.
It looks like dead. It looks
Yeah.
too like dead
Which,
body.
I mean, they might have been going for
Yeah.
that, but
And
at the same
it-
time, we've seen other molds of, like, Data body parts before, and they have made similar problems where, like, it seems like it's really shiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I was like freaked out by this. I'm glad they didn't show it for that long. So back on the Enterprise, Data is like, digging around on the back of his head. They're like, oh yeah, this is probably Data because like there's certain not it was like certain class, like someone's an L, someone's an
Technobabble.
S, I don't know, T, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're like basically it's Data. So Riker's like, Data, how can you touch this and not be creeped the fuck out or feel emotions? And Data's like, oh no, it's cool. Like, Data, this is terrifying. But so now Data's like, well, so guys, I definitely die in the 19th century. Case closed.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely not. I will not allow this to happen. So Geordi also hasn't figured out, like, who the aliens are. Because, like, Data's head can just get there, like, on its own.
Well, not with
they're,
that
like,
attitude.
Aliens. Yeah. So they think aliens were brought them down. So Geordi hasn't really figured out much about the aliens, but he did figure out that they're dealing with a species with microcentrum cell membranes. I don't care what that
Basically,
means.
they're just nothing like humans.
Yeah.
Or
So, okay, so then they're like, okay, so maybe we go, like, back to the cave, but there's, like, the waves, and they're like, it's okay, it will only hurt us for a prolonged period of time. This will be fine. So, then they were also like, oh, maybe they might have been shapeshifters. So my first thought was, like, maybe this is a shapeshifter, and that's, like the Data head is a shapeshifter. It's like one of the aliens. I mean, obviously I haven't watched part 2 yet, so I don't know what the conclusion is, but that was my first guess. So, okay, Geordi doesn't think they've encountered this alien before, but, like, what is familiar is a cellular fossil, a microscopic ciliated life form, LB10445. It only exists in one place, Davidia 2 in the Murab sector. So Geordi's like, Data. Oh, so okay. So Geordi and Data are in 10 forward, and Geordi's like, Data, you want to talk about your death? And Data's like, no, I'm good. Do you? And
Yeah.
Geordi's like, fuck yeah, I do. And Data actually has, like, an interesting perspective on this, because he's like, he's pretty okay with this, because now he knows he's not gonna live forever.
Yeah.
And, like, it occurred to him that, like, he likely would, like, as an android, he just was gonna have to, like, watch his friends die,
And then watch
and
the next
like
friends
he
die.
kept living. He doesn't change. Yeah, because he's like, I'll just make more friends. Like, it's like, yeah, Data, but then you go watch
Yep.
them die.
yeah.
You're just gonna watch every single friend you make. You know they will die before you do. So now Data's like, oh, this makes me feel a little closer to being a human, because there is an expiry date on me now. He doesn't live forever. So yeah, that's something. So Data says, it provides a sense of completion to my future. And which is okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, it's a nice way to think about it.
Yeah. So now basically he can look forward to death.
Yeah.
Like, Data's basically, I was gonna say YOLOing it,
he's
but
excited
he's
to
not.
die.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Picard calls basically for the Avengers to assemble. They have got a mission. So they've arrived at the Davidia system, and Geordi tells Guinan about the Data head, and Guinan's like, full circle. And I'm like, ooh, we're gonna need more information. We do get more information. Not a ton, but some.
Hashtag full circle, you say.
Yeah. So, I just realized in my note, I wrote Troy walking around with Troy, but I meant to write Troy walking around with Riker. So Troy is walking around with Riker, and Riker's having a hard time with the fact that they found Data's head, and he's like, she's like, oh, Riker, it's okay to be angry, and he's like, I'm not angry, and then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm angry. And Troy does actually a very good impression of Data.
Yeah.
Where she like defines the word friendship. She also does like the little head tilt at the end, which was like, to me, that's what made it.
Yeah.
So, and so basically the gist of it is like Data's view of friendship is like, he's become used to them, and they've become used to him. So it's like a point in their life now. So Troy's like, oh yeah, Riker, it's like when finding out that a friend is a terminal illness, and then the turbo lift opens and Data's standing right there, and Troy and Riker get on, and like it's very awkward. Even Data's like, the fuck's happening? He just like looks between them, and that Data is like, oh, so I've noticed people are being like pretty weird and stopping conversations abruptly when I show up. Does this seem like an accurate observation? And Troy goes, yes, and Riker goes, not at all. And then Riker's like, it's just that our mental pathways have become accustomed to your sensory input patterns. And Data's like, yeah, I'm fond of you too. And I was like, oh, that's cute.
I like how cute the scene is. Like, it's clearly played off for a little bit of a laugh, but it's also just a good character exploration scene.
Yeah. I like that.
This episode is really full of those, like, good scenes in an otherwise pointless story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so like sensors have picked up an unusual temporal disturbance on a small area of the planet, and there's like a high level of triolic waves at those coordinates. The magnetic signature is identical as they found in the cave, whatever. So then they're like, okay, away team, assemble. And it's Worf, Geordi, Troy for some reason, and Riker, and Data's like, Picard, can I speak to you for a second? And so they go to his ready room, and he's like, Picard, I'm being excluded, and I don't like it. I want to be part of it. And Picard's like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote Picard's like, I feel like I'm okay with that at the moment.
Yeah.
So Picard goes, because he's like, okay. He goes, cheat fate. Perhaps we can't, Mr. Data, but at least we can give it a try. Because Data is very much like, it's going to happen. And Picard's like, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
So so down on the planet in this other cavern, Troy senses dozens to hundreds of living beings. They are terrified. And Troy's like, gasp, they're human. They're not human. So thanks, Troy. Listen, we all know I love Troy, but honestly, this was why. Troy was not helpful. We'll be I'll be honest. I love her, but this was why.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they just wanted to throw her in so she had something to do, but like, don't throw her in if she has something to do if she can't actually be helpful, because this was not helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically they kind of established that they're like the aliens are there. It's just same space, different time, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
To a point. Like, I'm interested about that idea. Did they go there? No.
Yeah.
Did we really do a good job of like exploring it? Questionable. Okay, so there's like a 0.004 variance. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know. They've got to tune
Dory,
themselves to a
the
thing.
explanation is supposed to be kind of like a multiverse thing, but they really didn't do a good job of trying to explain that, and even then their understanding of it didn't really mesh with science anyway, so it was just not a good decision. Essentially, time exists and something else can exist in the same place at a different time at the same time as you, which is like, no, that's not how it works. Like, if they were here 0.4 seconds ago, they would just be here 0.4 seconds ago while I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Geordi's like, I don't think we have like the tool we need to like get to the 0.004 whatever. And Data's like, I do. It's me. I'm the tool.
Yeah.
Well, he is the tool.
So so Data goes down to the planet, and Data's basically gonna like have to vibe and become invisible. But he'll still be able to talk to the away team, but they can't talk to him.
Yeah.
So Data like does turns, it's like 0.001, blah blah blah, till it gets to 004. He disappears. He's now invisible, but he's like, oh, there's people here. They're ignoring me. Blah blah blah. This doesn't matter. He's describing them. They're random looking. Blah blah blah. And so he's like, oh, 4 limbs, no eyes, whatever. And I just wrote my note. Good guess, Troy, that they're human. Good guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have like they eat gross. They ingest energy. Okay, so Data encounters another life form, Ophidium? Ophidium?
It means snake-like.
Yeah.
Oh, gross. I hate that. Okay, so, but there's like restricted by some force field. Explosion. Data is cut out from they lose the connection to the crew.
Mm-hmm.
So, then they just find the random device that Data was using. Data wakes up in the cleanest 19th century street I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And,
And we've been there.
and my next note, all I wrote was just horse. The horse was so cute. Okay, so Data meets a guy immediately who's like, "Oh, I'm ill, and whiskey is my only cure."
I honestly love his dialogue. It's really
Yeah.
entertaining. The fact that
Here's a
he
question.
picks up on the way that Data talks and starts talking very similarly immediately is very amusing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Data's like, "Listen, I have no money, I have no whiskey." But the random old guy, he calls himself a 49er. What is that? Do you know what that means?
Yeah,
I have
that's
no idea.
it's a historical term for people who tried to get in on the gold rush in the mid 1840. Well, specifically 1849 was when the Klondike gold rush happened.
Oh.
That
Yeah.
went up to like Yukon and whatnot, and it was kind of infamous for pretty much like leaving a bunch of people more broke than when they started. Essentially, aside from like a couple of people who got rich, the majority of people who made money out of the Klondike Gold Rush were people who were providing services to the people that went up there to try to strike it rich.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's
but
why
isn't-
the football team in San Francisco is called the 49ers.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, isn't there a sport team called 49ers?
Yeah, sports ball.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, yeah, sport ball. Okay, so Data is looking for two beings and a snake, and I wrote, for selfish reasons, I hope he never finds them because I don't want to see it. Okay, so then this guy who, okay, we learn his name is Jack.
Yeah.
So I will call him Jack. He's basically the bellboy at this hotel. And he's like, looks like the, he comes up to Data, who's in his regular uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack's like, oh, looks like the missus booted you out in the middle of the night. And Data says, I understand the source of your misperception. However, this is not sleepwear, and I do not have a missus. And the guy Jack goes, well... And then Data goes, I'm a Frenchman. And guy goes, oh, well, everyone's from somewhere. And then he's like, Data needs money. He's like, oh, can I do like, I need somewhere to stay, but like, I don't have money. And can I work for you guys? And then he's like, then Jack's talking about whatever, and he mentions poker. And Data's like, poker, you say?
Yeah.
So Data then joins a game of poker played between, okay, so this is the group. We got Mutton Chops, we got Mustache, we got Indigenous Man in Cool Hat, and Leonardo DiCaprio and Django Unchained. That's
Also
our crew
known
there.
as the guy who played one of the Cardassians. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
With a really
Yeah, I forgot Mark Alemo was in this episode.
with a really atrocious French accent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So the Data destroys them all in poker.
Can I-
And he walks back in. He walks into the
Wait,
fancy hotel room wearing
can
a
I,
fun
can
vest.
I point out
and
something
the hat.
that's like
Oh.
super offensive about that scene? There is
Go
a
for it.
Native American man whose only line is "pale face," and I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sakes, guys! Like, I know it's like in 1992, but come on. Anyway, that's it.
Yep. Not exactly
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Data gets a fancy hotel room. I actually really liked this hotel room.
Yeah.
Okay. So Data also uses the term jocular when he's talking to Jack. And I just sitting here watching the show, and then I just out loud to nobody but me, I just went, jocularity, jocularity,
Okay.
jocularity, which I think is from MASH. I think it's from MASH. I don't remember who says it though.
If anybody
I could be
listening who's
totally
under
wrong.
the age of,
Wait.
rather, who's over the age of like 50 could tell us, that would be great. Because our generation is not the ones who grew up with
Jocularity.
MASH quite the same way, except through like reruns.
Yeah.
Wait, am I right?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, I'm right. It was Father Mulcahy. His jocularity. I was like, I kept thinking it was Radar. It wasn't Radar. It was Father Mulcahy. Okay.
That's
All right.
everything you need to know
I knew it
about
was someone.
Dory. She can pull out a MASH reference
Yep.
off the top of her off the top of her head.
I actually never finished MASH. I got to like, I think season like 5 or 6 or something. Mm-hmm. And then, as I usually do, I get distracted partway through a show and I never go back to it. That's so many shows. Oh, God. I never know how so many things end. Okay. So Data shakes the Jack's hand because he's like, great, thanks. And but Data does not really like realize to Tiffin, and Jack just starts coughing, and Data's like, oh, you should really monitor that cough.
Yeah.
And then Data finally like realizes, oh yeah, gratuity. So he gives the bellboy a whole $1, and Jack's like, oh, listen, I can hook you up with Lillian, just so you know. And
yeah,
I'm
he's
like,
a pimp.
Jesus Christ, what is happening? And then he's like, oh, also, he can get whatever you want. Just, like, don't ask questions. I'm like, wow, Jack is quite the entrepreneur here. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Okay, so then we cut to, like, another, just we're all out on the street. There's some guy, and 2 very nicely dressed people go over, and they laser beam him from a small bag, and it sucks the life out of him. And it is gross.
It also sucks the saturation level out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, back on the Enterprise, Picard is like, let's just like keep going, let's keep vibing. And Riker's like, no, I'm going to, what the fuck did I write? Oh, because they're like, okay, well, they've decided Data's basically dead. But mm-hmm. Riker's like, no, I'm going to, this is the hill I will die on. I refuse. And here's the thing. I couldn't help but write in my notes, where was this commotion for Ro and Geordi?
Yeah,
yeah.
I like to point out
saying.
that Riker is actually very much out of character in this episode. And I find it strange. Like, he is acting irrational. And like hugely sentimental in a professional setting. That is not like Riker.
Yeah. So I didn't care for feelings. Okay, but on the other hand of that, we did get a group meeting, which I love. Mm-hmm. So Dr. C's like, oh, maybe those aliens that came to Earth because they're trying to like undermine the history. And they're like, oh, well, maybe there's something in, like, the 19th century that they want to, like, do something to. And Picard's like, Geordi, can we find a way to talk to them? And Geordi's like, sure, we can create a contained subspace field, but they would need to be extraordinarily... who cares?
Yeah.
I'm just, like, reading my notes, and I'm like, I don't care. There's just... Geordi has to make a thing.
Yeah.
And, he's, like, he's gonna make the best thing ever for this. Mm-hmm. So okay. Oh, okay. So then, so they were talking about like, okay, maybe like in the cavern. Maybe and then Worf really pulls us out. Wow, Worf. He's like, oh, listen. What if like we're in the cave? What if like we find Data, but maybe we're also back then and we die and our bodies just turn to dust and no one ever knew. Mm-hmm. Bye, and just like walks away. Like, oh wow, Worf. That got morbid real quick.
Also, Worf is wrong because he's like, if any of us were in there, our remains would have turned to dust like ages ago. And I'm like, skeletons last a pretty long time. Like,
yeah. So Picard goes to visit Guinan, who is experimenting, and I thought this was like going to be something. It's a drink, / metaphor, if you will. There's like talk about, this is a complicated. This drink is there's like chemistry involved, and bottom line, vapor tastes good.
Yeah.
And so Guinan tells Picard that he needs to go out in the away team, just like don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just go. And then she's like, oh, remember how we first met? And he's like, yeah, for sure. And she's like, JK, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Go on this fucking away team. You have to go. You have to go on this mission. Otherwise, we never meet. And he's like, okay. So back with Data. So Jack brings Data an anvil for science, and Data like just like picks it up with no like effort, and then he's like remembers, oh yeah, he's supposed to be French.
Wait, are you telling me the French are not
French,
super strong?
like a human? I mean like a human. I don't think French. I'm not gonna finish that sentence. It's human. I meant like he's human. And Jack's like, oh God, I was like borderline triggered, but Jack's like, isn't that what makes America great? I'm like, please don't put America and great next to each other ever again.
I would like to I'd like to briefly go into well, not background corner, but a little bit that the episode hasn't really explained and won't explain, but it'll give you like the tiniest bit more. So for the record, Jack's last name is London. You ever heard of Jack London?
No.
Jack London was a famous author from the same
Yeah.
era as Samuel Clemens. And Jack London, it's really interesting that they gave this dialogue to him, considering that he became like a huge socialism advocate.
Yeah. Although he
like
was
really big.
I looked it up also because I actually just watched part 2 for fun.
Oh yeah.
Because I kind of know the patterns, and I'm like, this guy's gonna turn out to be someone famous. Because that's
fair.
just how Star Trek goes.
Yeah, and they start cluing into the beginnings of his career there.
Yeah. So he apparently was like one of the first people to actually make like a large amount of money writing.
Yes.
But yeah, he was also like a huge like labor and socialism activist and stuff.
Yep.
Oh, party.
He used a good chunk of his money for it, actually, helping to what do you call it? Advocate for like unions and whatnot. It was pretty cool. Unfortunately, he died before the big union movements really started to hit. He wasn't that old.
His most famous book is Call of the Wild, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. The title sounds familiar, but I wasn't familiar with the name Jack London.
Yeah.
But yeah, American Dream is
most. Yeah,
Sorry, go
he
ahead.
doesn't have like the most famous name, but he was very significant.
Yes.
Oh,
He was
cool.
also a very early contributor to science fiction as a genre. Yes. That said,
that's a fun nod.
yeah, pinning him as the America the Great kind of person, interesting choice. I would not call it the most accurate one, but hey, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, so Jack also mentions, like, oh, you hear about those, like, horseless carriages? So I was interested, and I looked up, and I didn't realize so the first automobile was, like, built in 1885, and the patent was, submitted in 1886 by Carl Benz. So I didn't know that, but that was interesting. So in this, this takes place in 1893 because I looked at the newspaper. I do want to note that Jack does list his resume to Data. He's been a newsie. He's cut fish at a cannery, and he's been an oyster pirate. I do not know what an oyster pirate is, but party, I guess. Okay, so he's like, oh, let's go into business. You can invent and I will sell. I can sell anyone anything. And Data's like, sure, Jan. Okay, so then like Data's looking at the newspaper and, oh, hey, it's Guinan, the newspaper. Over a photo over the headline, Literary Reception Announced. And that's how we find out the date is August 11th, 1893. So, okay, then we're now at the reception in which, okay, I know who this is, but my first thought was, oh, hey, Colonel Sanders. Then my next thought was, oh, that's got to be fucking Mark Twain.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, Mr. Clemens. And I'm like, oh, fuck me, it is Mark Twain.
Fun fact about him, little tiny bit of background corner. Do you remember that dumb early, I think it was like a season 2 episode or something like that, about them. Well, okay, it wasn't about this, but they found these like humans that had been frozen in like cryogenic tubes or something like that centuries earlier.
Yeah,
and
vaguely.
one
Yes.
of them was like this old rich guy that is like, well, I'll be fine because I've got my millions in the bank. You know that fucking guy? Same actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I never picked up on that until
Well-
I looked it up. Because I'm just like, these guys don't act anything alike.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He did seem very familiar, but I couldn't
That's
place
fair.
it.
I don't think those two characters really come off as similar, though. The Clemens character does
No.
come off a bit similar to a one-off character that he played in a Voyager episode at one point. I cannot remember which one.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, yeah, I didn't recognize him from that episode at all.
Yeah, I think I
Why?
hate Mark Twain.
Yeah. This performance is so fucking
Oh, yeah,
annoying.
it's very over the
I
top.
forgot
Yeah,
how
I
annoying it
yeah.
was.
Ooh.
I was like, wow, do they want me to hate Mark Twain the way that I hate Ernest Hemingway? Because
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll hate him. I'll do it. I volunteer. Okay, so like Mark Twain, I feel like it would be meaner if I just call him Colonel Sanders. Maybe I'll do that. So Colonel Sanders goes on and on doing a speech how the Earth is fucking old, and we're like, yeah, thanks, guy. Ancient in the extreme, he says. Like, oh, geology shows man only would existed for a fraction of those years. I'm like, thanks. I know this. I've watched that show with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan. That ruined my life.
Yeah.
That's not why they're doing that scene, though.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
having,
no,
they're
I'm just
having, like, a
saying that
philosophy
his-
off.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I hate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I do not care for any of this. And they're like, oh, humans are nothing compared to the rest of time on Earth. I'm
Yeah,
like, thanks.
I was gonna ask if you remember the whole calendar analogy from the Carl Sagan thing.
Yes, I do. It was like, I remember the Neil deGrasse Tyson one because it was like, in the
yeah.
calendar, like humans show up at like 11:59
Yeah.
on December 31st.
Yeah,
So
in terms of like the
humans have-
calendar of the
universe.
Yeah, the whole span
time.
of the universe.
Yeah, humans really we showed up real fucking late.
Yeah.
And what did we contribute? Destruction. Cool. Okay, so Data then goes to see Guinan, and the bouncer at this luncheon will not let him in. And he's like, I'll call the police. And Data's like, fucking go for it.
Yeah. It's like I'll wait
so-
over there.
Yeah, so Data like makes it through to Guinan. He's like,
I
oh,
love how he
hey,
dodges that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, hey, Guinan, old buddy, old pal.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know who the fuck you are. I don't know her. And then Data's like, oh, we knew each other from when we were on the ship. And they're like, oh, which ship? And like the Starship Enterprise. And she's like, oh, of course. Let's go chat over here. And Data then gives her like the backstory and of like what the fuck's going on, that like how they know each other. And then, of course, who's, fucking eavesdropping? Fucking Colonel Sanders over there.
Yep.
And I just like, fuck off, Colonel Sanders. So Mark Twain's like, yep, So I like the idea that Mark Twain was like, yeah, I knew about aliens.
Yeah.
Just like in the general sense. I don't mean for this episode, but like the implication that Mark Twain knew that aliens existed. That's kind of funny. So back with the other crew. So Geordi, Riker, Troy, Worf, and Dr. C are like getting ready to go. And JK, sorry, Worf, you are no longer invited. Picard is coming instead because Worf needs to look after the ship. So now they use Geordi's device. They stand in the middle. They, vibe to 0.004, and now they can see these aliens. They're not alive. They're like, it's like an imprint of like an echo of the last moment of life, and they all died in terror. Mm-hmm. And great. So then two super fucking bright life forms appear and like reverse Hoover into the wall. It's really weird. And one is holding up a really shitty quality snake. And then they walk through the blinding light area. And then so everyone goes through, but then like the last shot is this like shot of two other glowing Stay Puft Marshmallow Men, I guess. It's a really weird shot. I was like, okay. And then it ends. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
I'm like, you bring me in with something I love, but then you slap me in the face with it too. Like, I love, they go to the 19th century. I love that.
Yeah.
But then you're like, hey, have Mark Twain also. And I'm like, why'd you do me like this? You really could have had me, but you were like, I know you'd enjoy this, so go fuck yourself. So,
well, you might get more in the second half. Who knows?
Oh, well, I know we will, because like the cliffhanger, we'll go back. I almost said I hope Mark Twain dies. I don't know when Mark Twain actually dies, but I assume not yet.
Quite a bit later.
So,
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, Twain was friends with Nikola Tesla. Anyway, so a little bit of background corner here. So they didn't want to do a cliffhanger for the end of the season. And the reason they did was because at the same time Star Trek Deep Space Nine was being developed, and there were rumors that TNG was going to be ending because DS9 was starting, and they're just like, all right, well, I guess we better do a cliffhanger. And they pull this story that had been kind of bouncing around for a while that they hadn't been able to figure out what to do with, in that Data is on some planet, and he has to convince the people there that he is a native person to the planet in order to like not blow his cover. But they couldn't find an excuse why the Enterprise would be gone this whole time. They really weren't sure what to do with that whole half of the story. And eventually somebody pulled this out of their butt, and they didn't really know what to do with it. As you can tell, there is not a lot of plot in this side of the episode, and they spent a lot...
They should have kept it in their butt.
Yeah, I think I'd
Yeah.
agree with that. The episode spends a lot more time just being like, hey, what would it be like if Data was in 18th century San Francisco? Or 19th century San Francisco. And so they do that, and that's it. That seems to be their one genuine idea for the episode.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to that, but like there's a lot of other nonsense happening.
Yeah, but
that I don't care about.
But it only deserves to be a one-parter.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff in the second episode that when we get to that, you'll see. I think there's some stuff
Yeah.
in particular that you will quite enjoy. You specifically will enjoy.
Yeah.
There's also more...
Yes.
Ooh.
Unfortunately,
there is more
Twain.
Mark Twain stuff.
I figured.
Yeah.
I figured. Here's the thing, though. What I'm going to guess is because now the rest of the gang has gone to 19th century, I'm hoping they all get into 19th century outfits.
We can't tell you.
That would make me
You're
so
gonna have to
happy.
guess what happens in the
Well,
next
you'll have-
part.
Yeah, you'll have to see.
But the point is, not much happens here, and we've gone
Yeah.
over most of it, and that's kind of sad.
Oh, prediction for the next episode. Hypothetically, if they were to be in 19th century clothing, do you think they'll be able to fit in a low V for Picard?
Yes.
Yeah?
I have no doubt they'll figure out some way to get that chest hair out there. And I don't disagree. I'm trying to think of like what, because like that wouldn't be the style at all.
Yeah.
For men, but like I'm sure they'd find some way to. Okay, here's how they would get it done. Picard's in like the full, garb with like the, buttoned all the way to the top. He gets into a fist fight and somebody rips his shirt. There you go.
Ooh, Captain Kirk
That's
style.
that they'll find some way.
Yeah.
If there's a shirt, there's a way.
Yeah.
I wish
He
wish
found a
that
way.
in the next episode or in this episode they had done more with them not really knowing how to dress of the time. They did they did a thing like that in
Yeah.
Voyager where they all got sent back to the 1990s and they didn't really know how to dress, so they're dressing in like the most ridiculous ways. The fucking like the Black Vulcan is like, well, I need to hide my ears, so he puts on a do-rag, but it just doesn't match. It looks really bad on him. One of the guys ends up wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and you're like, oh, for God's sakes, guys.
The thing is though that like with like because at the time, like, that was modern day
Yeah.
when they made that Voyager episode. So the audience has a frame of reference to know that what they're wearing is ridiculous for the time. Like, people aren't going to be familiar enough with historical fashion for it to come off the same way.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I guess part of the joke there is more visual than anything else, as opposed to people just not knowing what looked good to people back then. But I mean, there is one thing to consider about that. It's you can still take a top piece and a bottom piece that don't match very well, and like find a way to make it look weird. But it would mostly all be through dialogue. Like, what the fuck are you wearing? I did enjoy that Data walked into his hotel room wearing a vest over top of his Starfleet uniform.
Yes.
Yes, and the hat.
yes,
I love
the hat.
that. That was a great look. A++. I love that. That would actually be such a good Halloween costume, though.
Yeah.
It's not even just Data. It's Data winning poker money.
Yeah.
It's so specific, but it would be great.
Because
love
I
it.
think the implication is that he won, like he won so hard that they were betting their clothes and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that is it.
They lost their preferred literal and proverbial shirts to him,
Yes.
which I think
I
is
love
very
it.
funny. Yeah.
I really like that hotel room.
Yeah.
Can we tell I like old stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another thing I was going to say about the fashion thing is I think the reason they don't do that, where they don't really do the gag of them not knowing how to dress, is, I mean, those period pieces are just an excuse for them to do, like, to have fun with being a period piece, with dressing up
Yeah.
in the costumes and stuff. So
That is a good point. Yeah.
they just want to do it straight up. Even though
excited.
it might be more realistic to be like they don't know how to dress.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
I can't wait to see what they put the gang in for part 2. They have to put them in an outfit. They got to. They owe me this.
I deserve it.
Yeah, 30 years later, they need to give me this.
All right. Admittedly, yeah, there's not much to talk about this episode, so I think it's fair to move on,
Yeah, I think so
unless
too.
someone wants to bring something else up.
No, I guess, like, here's the thing. I have questions, but I feel like stuff is going to be answered in part 2. So I feel like holding my questions or, like, whatever makes more...
Well,
like-
you can ask, and then I can say whether we can answer that or not.
But here's the thing. I know you're not going to... Like, what the fuck's happening with Guinan?
Oh.
What is happening?
Oh,
I know I
thought-
can't...
No, I thought they made it clear in the episode. So basically, like, Guinan, this is a past version of Guinan. Like, Guinan was
Yeah.
just on Earth in the 19th century, so she hasn't met anybody yet.
Yeah, just I want to know, like, how she got there, why she got there, because she was like, "Oh, did, like, my dad send you or something?" And
They
I'm
don't
like,
answer that.
I need to know everything.
They don't answer that, I'm sorry.
I should have seen it coming. This is why I didn't want to ask questions, because I knew I was going to be either disappointed or,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I could have given you hope, but I didn't want to think I didn't want you to think that you'd get an answer when you would not. Because they deliberately keep, like, Guinan's backstory mysterious, so they never really answer many questions about her past. Basically
Well,
none.
well, maybe this you can maybe answer. Is Guinan an author?
No.
No.
In this?
No.
So why was her picture in the paper?
It's because she's a socialite.
Yeah, she's
just,
just like
like,
a rich
hosting?
lady
Yeah.
that does stuff.
She's the oh god, what's her name? The lady who would host stuff in Paris in, like, the 20s.
Yes.
But, like, the early version.
Yeah, I like that.
The earlier version. I can't think of what her name was. It's gonna drive
I
me
don't
crazy.
know. But I guess she
Mary
was just
Brown.
someone who would, like, hang out with intellectuals and shit like that.
Yep. Pretty
Yeah.
much that.
And like, they never answer it, but what I assume, because she's like, "Oh, my father sent me and I haven't stopped listening," what I'm assuming is that, like, her species, like, will go out to different planets to, like, listen to people and gather information. because her species is known as listeners.
Gertrude Stein.
Thank you.
That's who I was thinking of. Gertrude Stein. Well, because with Gertrude Stein, she had like Hemingway, Fitzgerald, those nerds. Mm-hmm. And so if Guinan's having Mark Twain,
yeah,
and this is like a little, gathering, Guinan is like the Gertrude Stein of her time, I guess.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember her name, but I remembered Kathy Bates played her in Midnight in Paris. So I just Googled Kathy Bates Midnight in Paris.
All right. I guess we'll move on to favorite moments and lines.
Okay, I liked Data, Troy, and Riker in the elevator. That was like kind of cute.
Yeah.
Honestly, I liked Data in the 19th century. All of that was fun.
Yeah.
I love the way he lit up when there was when Jack was like, poker, and he's like, poker.
Did you say poker?
I'm glad we got to see
I don't even know
horse.
Yeah.
I like costumes.
Yes.
We got a crew meeting, which I love. And I guess that might be it. I guess it's like a bunch of small little stuff.
Yeah. There's like a lot of good tidbits that are like kind of the standard things you like.
Yeah, because I honestly forgot what this episode was about by the time Data actually got to the 19th century.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that they were that he's trying to prevent his death or figure out how he dies or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot. I completely forgot.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really give you a reason to remember. Yeah. But yeah. The next episode is at least more of an episode where things happen.
Good.
Yeah.
I could use that.
Yeah. My favorite bits, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's the exact same as yours. It's
nice.
That, Data being so excited about poker. I liked that little conversation in the turbo lift. I especially like the conversation he has with Geordi where, Data has a really unique perspective on finding his own head. I thought that was cool. That
yes.
I liked the perspective the writers gave him. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Jeff?
I like the teaser because it's batshit. It's just super normal.
Wait, I didn't see a teaser.
No, the teaser is
where they find his head.
Yeah. The teaser is
the opening.
The amount of the episode that happens before the credits. Or sorry, the main titles.
Yeah, the cold
open.
Yeah.
So the teaser is, hey, you're on Earth. You get a stock shot of Starfleet Academy. Okay, now we're in our underground set. All right, you can look at these amazing artifacts. It's a watch. It's a gun. Apparently, I looked this up. Apparently, Data actually gives an incorrect description of the gun, so good times. Anyway, so let's bring you to the real reason that we brought you here. Data's severed head. The end.
Yeah. It is pretty funny. So I guess predictions for the next episode, which is part 2. Where do you think we go from here?
Oh God.
Where do we go from here, Mr. Clemens?
I don't know. Is there a description for the next episode that I can kind of run with a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. Jeff, you wanna do that?
Do I want to? Yeah, I can do that. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna read from Memory Alpha, actually.
Okay.
Trapped in 19th century San Francisco, because remember, they went through that portal and they don't know how to get back yet. The crew of the Enterprise must locate Data and prevent his death while stopping the Davidians from destroying Earth's history.
Well,
what are they gonna do?
That doesn't help me at all.
Well, what is something the crew has to do to find Data?
Find Data. GPS. Geordi just vibes till he finds Data.
for whatever reason, I'm sure their tricorders won't work when they
Yeah.
need them to.
Okay, I feel like they'll run into each other in like a silly way, like in public or something. Oh God, I'm just trying to think like how. Okay, how do you
think
why
Mark Twain gets in the way?
God, fucking Mark Twain.
How does Geordie hide his visor?
The biggest hat ever.
It goes over his eyes.
Listen, I don't know. I don't care for hats.
Yeah, he's Professor Layton.
The biggest pair of sunglasses ever. They have glasses, so like maybe they like tint them or some shit. I don't know. Listen, I've learned I don't know what was invented when. So yeah, okay. So okay, Mark Twain, he obviously thinks he's like fucking important, and okay, he's like, I can help with my unique perspective of fucking nothing. Fuck you, Mark Twain.
I don't know why you dislike him so
It's
much.
this episode. I had no feelings about Mark Twain prior to this episode.
Oh, I was going to say, because, like, the actual Mark Twain...
I'm sure he's a
it's a really
perfectly nice
interesting-
person.
Well, no, it's not that. It's that Mark Twain was not just progressive for the 1800s and 1900s. Mark Twain is progressive by today's
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
there's,
like
That's
there's
pretty
some
fucking
things that
cool.
are definitely a standard of his time. But
Yeah,
in
yeah.
some ways, yeah, he is even progressive for today.
okay, well then I'll put it this way, because I'm indifferent to Mark Twain in general. I don't know very much about him. I have never read anything that he has written. The only thing I do know about him is that he lived in a nice house at one point, and now it's a tourist attraction, and I would go there if I was in the area. I wouldn't go specifically to like out of my way to go to it, but
Yeah.
if I was like there, yeah, I'd go.
Yeah.
If it was like less than an hour from where I was, I'd go. Okay, but yeah, I don't know really anything about Mark Twain, but the way that they portray him in this, I hate him.
Yeah.
That's
I
fair.
forgot how, because I was watching this episode and part 2, and I'm like, hey, this is actually like fun. Why do I always skip these episodes? Oh, right. Fucking Mark Twain.
Which is like, this Mark Twain situation is the opposite of my Ernest Hemingway situation. I hate Ernest Hemingway as a human person.
Yeah.
But Corey Stoll did such a good job in Midnight in Paris that I was like, briefly, do I like Ernest Hemingway? And I'm like, no, Corey Stoll's just a good actor.
Yeah.
Ernest Hemingway is shit. And the funny thing is, I actually used to live like right around the corner of where Hemingway lived when he lived in Toronto.
Oh, neat.
So
I didn't even know.
I used to
he
see
lived
the
in
little
Toronto.
sign. Yeah. Yep.
Neat.
I think he worked for the Toronto Star briefly or something. Yeah.
I'm sure
So-
he'll show up in Murdoch at some point. Because anyone who has any sort of tenuous connection shows up in Detective Murdoch.
Oh, Murdoch Mysteries.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
Murdoch
yeah, yeah.
Mysteries. Yeah, I don't know why I said Detective Murdoch.
Oh, very quick side note. So I did the Casa Loma escape room of Murdoch Mysteries, and it was great.
Nice.
It was fucking great.
Yeah.
I've also done the Dragon one. Okay, listen. These are expensive. They're like $40, but honestly, the production value is top notch.
Yeah.
But the Murdoch Mystery ones had a great fucking time.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
so cool.
They actually
Loved
have
it.
an escape room episode of Murdoch Mysteries.
Ooh.
Yeah, where they have to like solve puzzles and shit. It's very fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you
I've actually
wa-
never seen an episode of Murdoch Mysteries.
I think I don't know. I'm like 50-50 about whether you'd like it or not, because it is a period piece, and I know you like period pieces.
But here's the problem. It's a Canadian show,
Yeah.
which is probably why I probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I did watch another Canadian costume drama, and I fucking hated it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should like it. These costumes are gorgeous, but I was like, I hate every single character.
Yeah.
Well, I don't hate every single character. I hated the main character, and the writing was so fucking bad.
Yeah.
I won't say it because
I
I
would
won't say what it's called.
I would
but-
say give Murdoch a shot.
But how many seasons? It's been on for like 50 years at this point.
But you don't really need to like. It's not like a thing like.
It's not a continuity. I need to watch every episode to understand what's going on.
I was watching it with my friend and her fiance, who's American, and like has obviously never seen it. Murdoch Mysteries does have a surprising amount of lore. Like there are some times where it's like, oh yeah, you kind of have to know like what's up with it. But really the show is the exact, pretty much the exact same from season 1 to season whatever fucking 12 they're on now or some shit. So like
wild.
Yeah, if you don't like it in season 1 or whatever, you're not gonna like it later on.
Okay.
So
well, maybe I'll watch the first episode and see what I think.
Yeah.
I do know the main guy. I do know Murdoch himself.
Yeah.
Not personally, but like he was on a TV show that I watched.
Yeah. Yannick Bisson, I think.
Yeah. He was on Sue Thomas, FBI.
Yeah.
He was the male lead on that.
He's also in insurance commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Party.
As Murdoch.
No,
Yeah.
not as Murdoch.
That would be funny. My dad was actually in an episode of Sue Thomas FBI. He was in the back. He was a background actor. He was like between two people in the background at a coffee shop. It was very funny.
If anyone listening happens to be American and doesn't know anything about Canadian TV, Canadian TV loves a costume drama. Like, loves a costume drama.
Well, yeah, because that's the closest thing that we get to a budget.
Yeah, true. And we very much are in love with the Victorian era.
Or World War One.
Yes, or World War One.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Oh,
that
yeah.
was
I
our-
saw Passchendaele in theaters.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Paul Gross.
Oh, man. I was working at the cinema when Passchendaele came out. So
I saw Paul Gross once ride a bike by me, and I just stopped and said out loud, "Was that Paul Gross?" Nobody answered me because that's a weird thing to ask out loud.
Yeah. Although Due South fucking rules. I love that show.
I've never seen Due South, but I've seen men with brooms.
Due South is Paul Gross plays a Mountie who goes to Chicago to investigate his father's death.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and then he's just like living like in Chicago solving crimes with a Chicago detective, and he's like a very stereotypical like super nice, super orderly Mountie.
Is he in his costume?
Yes, he's in the Mountie.
So is this
costume
like
all
a
the time.
sanctioned like collaboration then, if he's wearing his uniform to help the Chicago police solve crimes?
I think it's
How
like,
did that work?
I think
How
it's
does
like semi-sanctioned. I don't remember the exact details.
I've got the
think
logistics of this is messing me up now.
Because I think in the pilot he like goes off on his own because he wants to investigate his father's death, so he's kind of doing it like off the books. But he's very proud of being a Mountie, so he like keeps in his uniform. And then I think he becomes like assigned to the Canadian embassy later on, so he can stay in Chicago and solve crimes.
All right, well, okay. Because here's the thing. I know that, like, if you want to work in the States, you have to, like, you can get a work visa, but, like, you have to be able to, like, basically prove that, like, you can do this job better than, like...
Yeah.
If you're going to the States, you be able to, like, you're the one who is, like, the only person who can do this job over an American.
I don't know if that's...
I'd love to... that was the rule, like...
That's the
at
rule.
the very least, like a
that's the rule for
decade ago or something.
That's the rule for Canada. If you want to work in Canada, your workplace has to prove that they can't find a Canadian to do the job.
Well, it's in the States also.
Is it?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
to a point, yeah. Because I won't go into it.
Yeah.
There was a whole thing like a decade ago. Anyways, I'd love to like see how they. The logistics of how they were like,
But
yep,
also, this is a
Canadian
TV show
can
from
solve
the 90s.
crimes.
this is a TV show from the 90s, and
Oh, anything can happen in the 90s.
this
was before you take the shoes off at the airport.
but also, Dory, I don't think a TV show is very concerned about work visas.
That's true. They should be.
Yeah.
No, truly, it's the 90s. It's like you could do anything then.
Yeah.
You truly could get away with anything. So,
Yeah. Did we get a prediction, or
no. I tried to distract because I don't know. I have nothing. The like blurb didn't like it. It didn't give me anything new to kind of go off of. It's already stuff I knew.
Fair enough.
So, oh god. Okay, so fine. I'll come up with something. Oh boy. Okay. So. Okay.
I think we'll let you get away with just tell me how you think Mark Twain is gonna fuck this up for everybody.
God, the better question is, how isn't he gonna fuck this up for people?
True.
I think he will actually fuck it up in some way, because I feel like he's gonna try to like think he's like involved now, and he's like with the group, but he's gonna like fuck it up somehow, or let something slide that he shouldn't have, or some shit. I keep just trying to think of like, why do these aliens want to fuck with the timeline? And I come up blank.
Yeah.
Is this because like it's the like Industrial Revolution times? But like,
I don't
and so
remember
like
if
this is when a lot of technological shit was starting, like the car and this electricity and shit.
Well, I don't remember
I don't
if
know
they.
I don't know the years of stuff.
I don't know if this is covered in the ending of the episode, but it's like, if it's not, it's very early on into the second episode, so I'll just tell you they're just stealing energy from people to feed off of. So they picked that century because they know they could do it without getting too much attention.
Oh. Okay, well that's fucking lame.
Yeah.
I thought they were really trying to like have some kind of like I thought they were going to like try to change an event so like they could something. Okay,
No.
but they don't. They just want to suck some energy, drive people.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because
Well, then why didn't they go even earlier than that? Because like
That's what I was
photographs were photographs were a thing at this
Yeah.
point. And
Because
there's ways you can like have evidence.
Yeah.
They're bad at their jobs because they
Yeah.
also leave behind Data's fucking head. So
yeah.
their logic is stupid.
Yeah, I don't.
They should have gone back farther, where there was like literally nothing to be able to keep like.
You're not wrong, Dory.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was an excuse to put Data in the 19th century.
Yeah.
That was it.
Because
And here's
I
the
don't,
thing: they could have done that without this by just putting him in the fucking holodeck. Give me a holodeck episode, TNG.
Yeah,
I miss it.
So I don't remember if they say this like at the end of this episode or at the beginning of the next episode, but basically there's this part where Dr. Crusher's like, you know, if you wanted like human energy, you know, like what would you do? And she's like, I would travel back in time to when there were diseases and plagues and steal the energy then. And I'm like, why didn't you go back further before there was mass media?
Go
Like,
to the
there's-
fucking plague then.
Yeah, there's like
Go to the literal fucking Black Death.
Yeah.
No cameras, no any technology shit.
no newspapers.
Fuck- How many, like, majority, 3/4 or something of the continent died? Like, that seems to me, like, if you want disease,
Yeah.
that seems like the time.
Yeah.
Or the pandemic in the 1900s, and, like, the early 20th century.
Yeah.
Or you come to 2020!
Yeah.
No, that's so bad. No, don't come to 2020.
Because there was a cholera outbreak at that time, and they're using the cholera outbreak as a cover for.
Oh, that's lame, though.
Yeah. It is.
Just
pretty
fucking
lame, yeah.
just do Black Death. That makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But I guess they'd probably have to have a bigger budget to make a set. But truly,
Yeah. In this case, they actually just used
Just
a
go to
couple
fucking
of historic
caveman times. Like, who cares?
Yeah, they used a couple of historic areas around like actual LA, San Francisco to shoot this.
Yeah. Because it always has to be fucking San Francisco.
Yep.
Because that's where everything happens.
In Star Trek. yes.
Everything in human history in the Star Trek universe.
Actually,
revolves
okay,
around San
okay,
Francisco.
wait. Not entirely true. There was a Strange New Worlds episode that literally just took place in Toronto in
Yes!
like current
shit.
era.
it was so good.
Yeah. They
It
go
was
to the
so
Eaton
good.
Center.
Oh, that's
They
hilarious.
go to Roots. It was so good. I loved it. I was like screaming for like the whole episode. I loved it. It was
Now-
actually
I have
very
to catch
good.
up on Strange New Worlds. I've
It's honestly worth it. If you want to get together,
good.
we can binge it sometime.
yeah, that'd
It's
be cool.
I'm having a good time with
Cool.
it. It's
So
a good
that
time.
that said, with no spoilers, I won't include any spoilers about it. But because Strange New World shoots in Toronto, obviously,
Yeah.
doing an episode in Toronto is just as inexpensive as doing an episode in San Francisco.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
San Francisco is the New York of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good times. Okay, but
All right.
that Toronto episode's so fucking good of Strange New Worlds. I love it's so good.
All right. I think we should end this episode now.
Oui, oui.
Okay, sure.
So, our next episode will be the season 5 retrospective. So please join us for that, and we will see you on the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.